Tonight's Modern Men is powered by the Hero Initiative. Interested in becoming a hero? Go to heroinitiative.org to see how you can be a hero to comic creators in need. And welcome to week 29 of Modern Men. Oh my God, what an insane weekend it's been. But we're not going to take any days off after Mainframe Comic-Con. I just want to make a huge thank you to all of you guys who tuned in this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Comic Core coverage of Mainframe Comic-Con. Huge shout-outs to Drew right down there. This guy killed it all weekend with the pre-work, the interviews, the backstage work. The guy busted his back. Chad, same thing. Chad, I know you're watching at home because I told you to take the night off and enjoy the show and watch it. So don't produce anything. Don't call any agents. Just have a good time, man. So Chad, he did a lot of work. Of course, Alec, John's Comics with Kids. Who am I? Comics Misexplained. Man, those guys killed on a lot of interviews. Just big thanks to everybody who tuned in and helped out. We'll have a total sum coming up this week of what we raised for the Hero Initiative. You guys responded in mass, so thank you so much for that. But you guys came here for Modern Men tonight. We'll be reviewing the Killing. See, I'm so speechless. I only have words today. We're going to be reviewing the Killing Joke tonight because Chad won the randomizer with a Hero Initiative donation. Look at these guys throwing up their copies. I got a nice copy over here. I'll show it shortly.
I read it digitally.
I actually did too.
Yeah,
but we got some notes on the digital form, man, because it's actually really interesting to me. So we'll get into all that. Our topic tonight, which is based on the poll from 2 weeks ago, we're going to talk about the best comic books we've never read. So we'll see what happens there because everyone expects us to read everything. Maybe you'll be surprised of what we haven't. But let's get into the panel here, and then we're going to get into the chat and then the Killing Joke. But, man, I want to get to the panel first because, Andy, that beard, it's just, man, speechless.
Man, and, the beard is amazing. But I've got something that's just eating away at me, Carson. I got to fix this really quick. There we go. Carson's back where he belongs. All right.
I don't know. Now Drew's up here. Anyway, how you doing, Drew?
I'm gonna hijack the show for just a quick second to let people know why my involvement in today's show might be as limited as possible. Let's go ahead and do a little quick screen share. There is my screen up.
Wow.
Yeah, I logged into this website at 12:30 today. And my estimated wait time right now is 7 minutes at 10:14. So I might be hopping out mentally from this and heading over to claim what is rightfully mine for sitting on my ass. So keep that in mind. And anybody who was waiting for the Daily Show today, sorry about that. I technically woke up and got out of bed. Like I was just doing some things on my phone all day long, but I technically got out of bed 23 minutes ago. So yeah, that's how that works after Mainframe Comic-Con.
Nobody blames you, man. You were on Mainframe for all 3 days.
I told JB on Sunday, yeah, I'm doing a show on Monday. Who do you think I am? And today I was like, nope, not happening.
Well, without further ado, I want to get to our special guest who just graced us with his presence like within the last 5 minutes, letting us know. I mean, he wasn't even asked until, 6 minutes ago? So, and he's here. Rob Worst, how you doing, man?
You went robot.
Hey, I'm doing great. I can't complain.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you. Yeah, you seem to be freezing there a little bit, buddy. But while you get that figured out, it's time to go to the chat. So, of course, first, as usual, is anyone surprised? Chris Barrett, first in the chat. Once again, this guy hung out the entire Mainframe Comic-Con, I think from start to finish, minus a little bit where he had to go. And he apologized for having to leave when he came back. So, Chris, big shout out to you, man. You did great with the moderation duties all weekend. We got aggressively relaxing, says Barbara. Would have disarmed Joker and destroyed all three dudes in the hallway. This art has no truth. Interesting point. That's a good one. We'll talk more about that, of course. Scott Evans is in the chat. What is going on, Scott? I know he loves to read along, and I love the fact that people out there like to read along. We got Gomer in the chat. How you doing, Gomer? Nice to see you out and about. One of my favorites, the StreamYard Elements Robot.
Hey, I want to shout out to Gomer real quick. I reached out to Gomer for some help on the social media the day of the con, as some elements of our planning team maybe didn't do as good a job as others. And Gomer and the team over at outrightgeekery.com blasted out absolutely everything that was going on at Mainframe Comic-Con, and we are indebted to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Gomer. That's awesome. So thanks for, like I said, just thanks for everybody who contributed a bit to what made this weekend a success. We got Just a Rican in his comics. What is going on, Rod? Nice to see you. Of course, we got Rob Worst. Looks like he's back with us. That's awesome. And then Bear Island Comics. What is going on, Bear? I know he loves him some Batman, especially that animated series that we all sandbagged a couple weeks back, but let's forget about that. And then we got Aggressively Relaxing once again, Kenneth Bird and Phil Ailing. So happy to see people are making it into the chat tonight, because I know people probably get tired of seeing Comic Core in their subscriber feed, but we'll give you one more today. But nonetheless, it is time to talk The Killing Joke. So usually I kind of start these for those of us who read it or not. I like to kind of talk about what these stories meant to us before it ended up on a randomizer or a poll win for Modern Men. So, Rob, I know you got a lot of awesome books behind you. What was your first memory or hearing about The Killing Joke?
So, from what I remember about The Killing Joke was right around the same time as, what was it? So they were going to kill Robin, and that kind of brought me into comic shops after I was given Born Again for the first time. So when I'm at the comic shop, one of the first things I see is this cover, and it was like a 4th or 5th print by that point. And I'm being told, yeah, if you want to get something, you got to read this. Like, but am I going to understand it because I haven't read that much Batman and I've been watching the cartoon? Yeah, if you like the cartoon, you'll understand everything. This. So I was basically just given this, shoved into my hand, and having no idea what it was about. It blew my little 10 or 12 boy's mind.
Yeah, I'll get to my story in a few, but it's actually kind of like that. What about you, Drew? I know you have you're not the world's biggest DC fan. I always give you hate for it.
Oh man, that's the thing, is I'm a huge Batman fan.
Right.
Like I find the tertiary characters of the DC universe completely disposable. And most of the main characters too are just C-list characters on a regular basis. That's what happens when you have Batman and Superman. Everybody becomes automatically less than by comparison, and that just is what it is. This book, though, I enjoyed this book the first time I read it. I was like, oh yeah, it's a really solid Batman book. It's mostly a Joker book. I don't feel that it is anything that's that special, and we can talk about that all night long.
What about you?
I mean, it's good. Oh. It's good, but come on.
What about
if it's one of the first books that you've ever read, it'll be great. But if you've read a lot of comic books, it stacks up on like a 3 out of 4 stars.
Yeah.
So we'll get in the grades later, but I've got a different number for it.
I've got a quite a different perspective, because as you and our Monday viewers know, as of last week, you guys broke my Batman cherry last week.
Yeah, so Batman cherry.
This is only my second Batman read. And what better way to start out this story of the Joker than to, for the first time, sit down and watch Joaquin Phoenix's Joker this morning. I rented it, sat down. I disagree with people that don't like it. I think that was probably the top first. That was.
I have to mute him right there. You can't like the Joker movie. Come on, what are you doing?
Avengers Endgame was probably the best cinematic experience of my life. Going to the theater in IMAX 3D. And all that.
Are you really about to put them on the same plane?
Drew, you might have to leave.
But we're gonna have to talk to the Comic Core about canceling Andy Given Thursday. I'm
fine with that. But as far as
I want to hear the sentence.
I'll mute myself here,
because I don't have a history of the Joker and history of the Batman and a lot of reading and understanding behind me about that. I went into this with a very fresh perspective and not a lot of bias. And watching that movie and then reading this book right after that made me a Joker fan overnight. Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker was probably one of the best written and character acted movies I think I've ever seen. I spent that entire movie literally leaning on the desk watching it right in front of my computer, and then I turned around and I read this today, and I was like, that's probably the best companion piece I think I've ever had with a movie.
Wow.
Now, granted, it's got some things, it's got some flaws, but it's also got some really cool stuff that we're about to get into. So, without further ado, as we continue moving forward, Carson, aren't there quite a bit of differences going on here with this book?
Yeah, I want to share my copy of it first because this was one of the first books I bought as a kid. So I've told my story dozens of times about me reading, Death Superman, that stuff, and then how I got into Wizard magazine, and that's how I kind of found out about the stuff I supposedly needed to read. And I talked about Dark Knight last week and Crisis and how those books were in there. Another one, of course, was Killing Joke, and I just happened to be going to a yard sale. I know it was a flea market, actually. That's about the only way I could buy, back issue comics lists through flea markets. Usually I would get my stuff through grocery stores and gas stations. But there was one flea market I went to where they had, of course, it wasn't slabbed at the time. I got slabbed later down the line because it was a good book. But I got this copy for like maybe $5 at a yard sale back in the day, or a flea market. And I was like, I actually finally able to sit down and read it as a kid, and I didn't understand quite all of the themes. Like I kind of missed the pictures of Barbara in the background the first time I read it, but maybe that's just my little kid brain not wanting to process that insanity that was going on. But I mean, I love this book from the time I read it, and I just got a chance to obviously reread it for Modern Men tonight, and I still love this book. I'll be perfectly honest. I think you were talking about companion pieces. I think us being able to read Dark Knight Returns last week and then go and get a chance to read The Killing Joke this week, I think this is going to be an excellent companion piece to the discussion we had a chance to do last week. So to get into, I guess, the meat and potatoes of The Killing Joke, basically it starts off, and actually I think I put up the panel, but if I didn't, it is what it is. I probably didn't, but it's just like Batman wants to just finally, he's just had enough of this idea that is the Joker, basically. And he wants to sit down in Arkham and just have a conversation with the Joker about the path that they're going down. And that path that Batman feels they're going down is that, oh yeah, there it is right there. He goes, I've been thinking lately about you and me, about what's going to happen to us in the end, and that we're going to kill each other, aren't we? You kind of see that happen and transpire actually kind of in Dark Knight Returns, where Batman finally just does enough to Joker to make Joker finally kill himself to get back at Batman because fun, Joker insanity. But it was just kind of interesting to see Batman kind of just take a deep breath. He's just like, what are we doing here? And he just wants to figure out a final solution to this Joker problem. And his solution is he wants to just sit down and talk to him, figure out where they can go. And you see the second half of this conversation transpire at the end of the book. But at the beginning, he kind of reaches out at his hand because he's playing cards to stop him, and he discovers the white paint, and that's where kind of the whole story begins. He's just like, I need to track down the Joker, but at the end of the day, as much as the detective I am and as many times as I fought him, I have no idea who the Joker really is. Rather, it's his identity, his personality. He has no clue what the Joker's going to do next, and then what does, of course, he do? Probably the most infamous act in this book is where he goes to the Gordon's house of residence, immediately shoots Barbara in the spine, paralyzes her until the New 52, basically, and then kidnaps Gordon, but that's not without consequence. He strips Barbara of her clothing, takes the pictures, and then runs Gordon through the dark carnival. He doesn't want to kill Gordon. He just wants to make this average man broken. So with all that being said, Andy, I'm going to let you take it away. You said this is the perfect companion piece to the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. What did you think about the actions of the Joker in this book?
Yeah, it's really hard to put into words exactly. And you want to let me shout out the fact that for an Alan Moore read, this was way more digestible than some of the other Alan Moore reads that we've done. As far as his actions, from the very get-go, it was pretty good. But then when they do the look back on kind of like the origin of Joker, it kind of pulled me away from the story. I almost feel like that noir kind of look back at how he was created was almost a disservice to the story at hand, to the actions that were actually happening, because I wanted more of what was actually going on and how crazy. He's a salesman, he's a showman, he's producing a show, he's buying that rundown theme park just so he can mess with Commissioner Gordon, and just so he can make him go insane. But then when we do that look back, it kind of pulls me away. Where am I going with this? Honestly, man, this was this was too short. This was too short, in my opinion. We spent 3 weeks reading books that were really long, and now I get to this, and I'm like, oh, that was way too short.
When you look at almost anything that Alan Moore's ever written for DC, even the short stories, everything's really continuity based. But when it comes to this one story, you really don't need to know a damn thing going in other than the Joker's an asshole. Barbara Gordon, you didn't even have to know she was Batgirl. I didn't know that going in. And Commissioner Gordon, you usually know the basic Batman mythos, but other than that, you can go in blind and it's a good story. But otherwise, it's very short, and you still want to know more about the Joker's history. You'll never get more of that from Alan Moore. And what happens after, which turns out to be, well, a pretty nice history for Barbara Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
See, I actually really enjoyed the history of the Joker more in the movie, with the spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, spoilers going on. The adoption process and the abuse process, and you can really see how they painted it and how it built him into the human being that he is, and the psychosis and everything that's developed from that. Whereas I feel like this noir portrayal of him just kind of trying to do a payroll bank heist at a former employer, and then him getting caught by the police department and the Batman. And then I really did like the fact that they dumped him into a lake full of chemicals. That was kind of badass. And that's what really shaped his face and shaped him as a character going forward. That was really cool, because that was a very, very similar portrayal to how Jigsaw was created in Marvel in the Punisher series. Dropped into the vat of glass and just shredded. Dropped into a vat of glass, kind of something similar, and then they're dropped into a sea of something, and then they're torn up, ripped apart, and then they emerge as a different character. So that was actually kind of neat, that there's almost something of a comparison between how the Joker was created in here and how Jigsaw was created in Marvel.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to ask too, you kind of mentioned the origin story, which I thought, and originally when I read this the first time, of course, I was a kid, like I said, and I was just like, I just wanted the main Batman versus Joker story, and I never really cared for the Joker origin either. But this time upon reading it, I found it kind of interesting, just because there's 2 reasons, actually. Number one, it almost is like Alan Moore's attempt at having humanization toward the Joker, which I don't know how a lot of people feel about that. But then there's also this other line where Batman is pursuing Joker down this dark carnival where he's almost kind of trying to figure out Batman. And he has the line, he's just like, well, I don't even remember how I got to the way I used to be, but it might have been because of this or this. And I'm just like, if we're seeing these memories of the Joker, and the Joker saying he doesn't remember what made him get pushed over the edge anymore, are these memories even real?
Good point. Great point.
So, or is it just him? Because I think, like, if you've watched, well, everyone here has probably watched The Dark Knight, that movie where Heath Ledger, every time like he's getting ready to like pursue one of these guys getting killed, like Michael J. White's character, he always has a different story about how he got those scars, basically. So it's just Joker in his head twisting and turning his gears, trying to justify his insanity, or these events actually happen.
I'm sold. I'm sold on that psychosis, that crazy, like every time he comes up now in a movie or in a new read, I'm hoping that some writer or creator just develops another crazy way to that in his head he's been created, because now I want to look for that every time it comes out.
Yeah, because it seemed like he had the pregnant wife at home, then all of a sudden she got killed by a defective baby bottle warmer, basically, is what it was, I believe. So, like, all things, like, what kind of sick joke would it be, like, for your loved one to be killed by a baby bottle warmer? So, and that wasn't even what finally gave him that one last push. It was basically seeing Batman in his memories is what gave him that push into that vat of acid, and him, like, being resurrected into this crazy Joker, obviously. So, and then I guess we could go ahead and before we keep going into the story synopsis, we're getting into a lot of the examples of the art I want to show, but Rob, I don't know if you've read the newer versions of it, because I was reading digitally and I'm like, this just feels a little bit off. And what I read, this is what I read. And then the original looks like this. So I didn't realize they recolored the original this crazily. So I was going to ask you at first, Rob. I don't know what versions you've all read, but I didn't know what your thoughts were on the complete recoloring of this.
I liked what they did with the coloring, but considering that the first time I saw it was, the fourth print or so, which was the original. So those crazy, bright, vivid Technicolor colors were just present in my mind, and it has been for the last several decades, since 1986, 87. So to just see it all of a sudden in early 2000s when they decide to recolor everything, it was to Dave Gibbons' benefit what he wanted. It's like when you look at a lot of Bernie Wrightson stuff where he says, I don't like the way you color it. It takes away from my artwork. And hey, if he thinks that artwork of his makes it look better, I think the same way as George Lucas. I like it the way it was original. You might not have liked it, but once as an artist, something leaves your hands, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the world.
Right. Andy, I know we talked about this a little bit before. What did you think about some of these images I was sending you about what it originally looked like?
Well, before we go too far into showing some of the comparisons, it's really cool. I took a bit of your guys' advice, and I went with the hardcover edition of a book finally to get that feel. And boy, did I love it. And boy, am I glad that I did, because Brian Bolland actually did an afterword in here quite a bit and talked specifically about that. And if I could pull right from that, it's probably well known that John's choice of colors turned out to be startlingly at odds with what I had in mind. So in February 2007, when Bob Harris told me about this edition, I said, please, can I recolor the whole thing? So he talks about for a little bit how back in the 80s, they were still shipping and mailing things back and forth, and he wasn't able to do that. So, John Higgins hopped on and was able to finish the book promptly, but it was a startlingly different route than what Brian Bolland was really looking for or what he was going for. So in 2007, he had the opportunity to redo it, and it's exactly what you'd expect out of a late 80s, early 90s book. I love the original. The colors are there. I those purples are great with the Joker, but you want to know what I loved even more? Was essentially the director's cut. It was great, in my opinion. This deluxe edition read amazingly well. And Carson, you grabbed this great panel showing the differences between was that page 7, 8, or 9 when Barbara got shot.
But the monochromatic colors just really represent and pop from the 80s, from that time period.
I disagree completely. I think the recolor is much better, much clearer pictures. You can see what's going on. The original, it is what it is, but it looks muddied. That monochromatic color scheme muddies what's going on there. It just looks like she got shot and fell down. Like you can actually see the surroundings, the setting.
We're gonna go back to that, Andy.
the entire scene of what's going on. You can tell it's a coffee table. Like, you can't tell it's a coffee table in the first one. Like, you can tell Jim's sitting on the couch. You can't tell that in the first one. You have to look and study those panels to see what's going on. The eye is pleased much more by the more realistic lighting available in the updated version, in my opinion.
I agree wholeheartedly with you, Drew. But I think that the original is period for the time. It's just that's what they were doing back then, and when they were shipping stuff back and forth, and they were still doing FedEx, and they were still doing, like, what did they call it? Blue lines, I think it was, in the original art. They just couldn't get the detail that they can now.
I just think it's lazy.
See, for me, I have a different perspective on this scene right here, especially those top two panels, because I think I can't remember who it was, and it was probably aggressively relaxing. I think he said, this is Batgirl. She should have been able to disarm the Joker and all that good stuff in this point. So on the one on the right, you can clear as day see that's the Joker, no problem. You can see his, makeup, the white paleness, the purple signature hat he's wearing. On the one on the left, it looks like he's starting to lurk out of the shadows to show himself in the goons to see what's going on. And it looks like Barbara's just taking a peek out to see who's at the door, whereas it looks clear as day on the other one. So I like the mystery and intrigue it brings to the opening scene there to see. It's truly a shock and surprise to Barbara, whereas on the other, it looks like she's just shocked. She's like, oh crap, it's the Joker, I'm about to get shot, whereas who's there on the one on the left? So I kind of like the 80s better, to be completely honest.
I just realized I've been saying Dave Gibbons, not Brian Bolland.
Oh, whoops.
That happens when you have
it does look, no, to be fair though, like we just read Watchmen about, I guess it's been a little 11 weeks now, but I mean the colors are very similar to that what you're featured in the Watchmen though, so I can't blame you there.
What I really like about that panel, and I'll flash it really quick for a minute, taking a look at the Joker, taking a look at his shirt and his hat, is the exact comparison that Brian Bolland did. If anybody's read deeply into this or researched it more on how he created the cover, he actually staged a number of photographs, and if you look at what he's wearing, it's not too dissimilar to what he actually had the Joker wear in the story. So
that's all. Should I change Joker's outfit? No, let's just call it a day.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, just copy this, it'll fit. And it adds to the creepy psychosis of the Joker that he shows up like in a button-down tropical bowling shirt and shorts and has the palest white legs ever on the next page.
So we kind of talked about what the Joker does, the origin of the Joker, however you want to interpret it. So basically the way it ends, he basically just tells Batman where he's at. He causes all this mental chaos to Jim Gordon. So Batman shows up in, a not too modern looking Batmobile. Like, Rob, you're talking how timeless this is. I think I completely agree 100%. Like, you could have read this, like, if you didn't tell someone what date this book came out, and especially if you gave them the recolor, they probably had no idea this came out in the 80s. The only thing that kind of like dated me in the whole thing was the Batmobile. That was it. And then the look of Batman when he was fighting Red Hood.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So Batman shows up to the Dark Carnival. They go through the fun house. The one interesting part to me is where Jim Gordon finally kind of comes to his senses, understands what's going on, and he just goes, I need you to bring him in by the book to show that our system works. And that's where, I think the best Batman stories always have Jim Gordon shine the brightest because he's basically the justice counterpart to Batman's being a vigilante, basically. So the fact that after everything Joker has done to him to kind of break down his psyche, Jim Gordon is still Jim Gordon, and he wants to bring him in by the book and make sure justice is served. He has not stooped to the Joker's level like he wanted him to. So after they go through the crazy carnival, they have their final showdown, and that's where we get the second half of the conversation. So, Rob, I'll let you go ahead.
I was going to say that although the Joker did all that horrible stuff while he shot. You didn't know at this point that she was paralyzed, even though Len Wein said, go ahead, cripple the bitch. But right after she gets shot, takes all these pictures. You don't know whether she's just been sexually assaulted or something even worse. And at the very end, Batman is sharing a laugh with the Joker. And we're kind of left wondering, right after this very uncharacteristic event happened with Batman, did he just snap the Joker's neck? Is this where we're leaving it? It's left very much like the end of the movie. What was that? The one with the top.
Inception.
Inception. Thank you. It's like the very end of Inception. Did he? Didn't he? It was very.
Inception was good, so it's not really like the end of Inception.
Well, for a very short story filmmakers. Whoa, what happened there?
Bang, bang.
Hot
takes, baby. Hot takes. I got hot takes. Andy, I've been filling out my unemployment while you guys have been having this conversation. I'm just listening to all the garbage you're saying about how great this is. And I can't wait. A moment at the end where I review everything with a score. So just go about your business.
Andy, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought up the Batmobile because this was written in 88, 89? Roughly?
1988.
Okay, 88. So in 1996, a fun little short came about on, I believe it was Saturday Night Live, called Ace and Gary, the Ambiguously Gay Duo. And I swear on the Holy Bible, they stole the vehicle for that short.
That doesn't look like a wiener. It looks like a bat face. What does your wiener? What does your wiener look like? If that's you think that looks like a wiener,
I don't know.
Yeah, what he said.
So phallic jokes aside, I feel like that was like the first thing I thought of when I went to that. I was like, well, that's Ace and Gary's automobile right there.
The Ambiguously Gay Duo.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of hentai, but I don't know, man.
Wow. We're getting a look into Rob Worst's extracurricular activities that I'm not sure I want to be a part of.
But Carson, I had a question that's been nagging on me, and the last two times I went and read this twice today. What, if any, significance is there in the different styles and colors of the doors at the carnival as he constantly goes through? Are they just trying to be significant in the fact that he's constantly going through it, and this is 1, 2, 3 different times that he goes through the thing? Or
I think it's just to signify that he's going through a different room of Joker's insanity. Because I don't know. Like I said, I kind of want to see the original colors on that scene too.
Because they did that in 2 different pages for essentially 6 different doors.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the 6 different doors were significant for one reason or another.
I just wonder how many pictures the Joker took. So who knows? But yeah, I was going to get into Rob's point he made there. So I don't know where the theory came up. I want to say it was Grant Morrison on Kevin Smith's podcast, the Fat Man on Batman podcast. But years ago, Grant Morrison came up with this theory. Maybe he didn't or just nicked it off somebody else. But yeah, that basically like this was like basically an Elseworld style story that was just telling the final Batman versus Joker story is what they originally planned to do here. And in that story, obviously it ends with everything that happened. Batman and Joker having a laugh because Joker told his final joke and Batman got a chance to speak his say and throw out his final solution. Joker kind of just brushed it off. So you see him laughing, and then all of a sudden in those last 2 panels, there are no more laughs being put in at all. So, Andy, what did you think about that first? Because you guys were even talking about it before I could bring it up in the StreamYard before we started this.
Well, I think, through this story, Joker's trying to stab people. Stab him with his, is it called the Joker Venom? And then he tries to stab Batman at least once, maybe even twice. I think that last panel, Batman just took his switchblade and shanked him and ended it. That's what I'm sitting on. That's what I'm enjoying, because characters never really die in comic books. So for this story to be that easily digestible, that enjoyable, and that fun, and then to have the Joker just finally freaking die from what I've seen, was That's what I like to believe.
So does that mean the Joker won in your eyes then?
Oh shit!
Chris
I gotta
Barrett
read it
dropping
again.
knowledge.
I gotta read it. That just blew my mind.
Chris Barrett, there aren't 3 Jokers in canon until there are actually 3 Jokers in canon. And right now there aren't. So as soon as that book comes out, we'll start considering it canon. But until then, Jeff Johns is just running his mouth.
Retroactively.
All right. So I think it's about, we've been going for 35 minutes here. I think it's about time for final assessment. So before you get contacted again, Drew, you want to get your stuff in? You ready, Drew?
Look. Here it goes. This book has 2 different scores. Okay, it has a score where you consider it part of canon, and a score where you don't consider it part of canon. If you consider this book part of canon, it's a 3 out of 10. That's simply how the way it goes. If you consider this book an Elseworld story, it's a 9 out of 10, and that's kind of the way that I look at it. There are so many instances throughout this book where the characterizations of these characters, as far as canon's concerned, are absolutely missed completely. Batman at the beginning goes to beg the Joker to tell him how he can stop fighting him forever because they might kill each other. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. Okay? He would not go and do that. He would wait for him to break out and he'd put him back in Arkham. That's the way it works. Batgirl would have come through the door and blah, 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 and disarmed us. No, she wouldn't, because what the Joker does is something the Joker would never do. Well, she just shoots somebody when they open the door. What the fuck is funny about that? Nothing. The Joker wouldn't do it. It's not funny. Nothing the Joker does in this book is funny, so he's misrepresented it. Andy, the Joker movie was the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen in my life. The Joker isn't even in it. And giving the Joker an origin, especially like in this book, ruins who he is as a character. The Joker is not a character. He's an agent of chaos, which means that he's a plot device for Batman. He's not a character. I don't want to know why he does what he does. That takes all the magic out of it. This book is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful character study on 2 different characters that never appear in Batman continuity, right? But he uses them to tell a morality tale. Alan Moore is great at that. You know what Alan Moore isn't really great at? Writing fucking anything. He's not that good. He is a dictator when it comes to his layouts and his artists, which is why he never works with artists more than once, because they can't handle the experience. Brian Bolland did not have any input in the way things looked in this. Alan Moore, I'm sure, gave him 45 paragraphs on each one of his panels in this 9-panel layout to make sure that it was exactly perfect the way that Alan Moore wanted it. And the second that it's not, the second he's got to collaborate with somebody, he hates it, because that's what comics are to him, is collaboration. And he can't stand that because he's a control freak. He does a great job telling this story here from A to B. It is a good story for the Joker. It is enjoyable and digestible. And it tells a morality tale between the 2 characters. That's a 10 out of 10. Maybe a 9 out of 10, because it is what it is. But as far as fitting into continuity, this book does not fit into continuity. It doesn't. And there's really nothing that special about it. It's pretty good. But it ruins continuity. So there you go.
All right. I can't wait for that 3 Jokers either, Drew. That's going to be awesome. Rob, what about you?
Well, I think that Alan Moore has always liked subtext and not letting readers in on that joke. So considering that this is an actual Joker story, not a Batman story, as you pointed out, that no, nothing about it's funny. But in his mind, everything's funny, and he's trying to gain some sympathy because he's a serial killer. He's self-aware. He's not an idiot. Because, a dumbass can't be self-aware. And
the Joker's not a serial killer, though. He's a terrorist.
Which is also a serial killer. So
very, very different. The Riddler is a serial killer.
In what he's doing. He's a terrorist that likes to kill. He likes somebody. He likes to create agents of chaos, correct. But through all this, he's trying to gain some sympathy through telling his story through the viewer. So he's making Batman very uncharacteristic. He's telling a joke where Batman's even laughing at it. He's telling the story so that you can gain some sympathy for the Joker, but we weren't let in on it. It's kind of like watching the movie Covenant and being told, hey, all the aliens are trying to kill all of us because we wound up killing Jesus. It's like, well, that would have helped to watch the movie beforehand, but why didn't you tell us? Oh, you're supposed to know. Fine, okay. It was a timeless story with some questions left open. It had some mystery, which is pretty much all he wanted back in the 80s.
I'm with Drew on this one. I feel like the Joker is more of a terrorist than a serial killer, because he seems to be more of a killer of opportunity and not very well planned out. And the definition of a serial killer is somebody who plans that out, right? I guess I don't know. Do we have a serial killer available?
Look, the Riddler, by definition, I understand what Rob's saying, and I'm not going to get into semantics. His argument doesn't rely on his definition of a serial killer being correct.
Right.
He's got points. But I would say, as far as Batman villains, Riddler would be a serial killer because he has a method to his madness. Joker is a terrorist because he is interested in creating as much chaos as possible. And Joker is not going to sit there and plan somebody's death for a reason within his own psychosis. He's going to kill as many people to make himself laugh for a reason within his own psychosis. So that would be the difference there. I would not argue Rob's point that it's moot. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're right, Rob.
By proxy.
Proxy right.
All right, so let's put a poll on this, guys. Andy, I'll let you go first. What's your score?
I'm going 9.6. As a reader who doesn't have an opinion that's built up over years of canon this or canon that or information, I enjoyed it tremendously. Because I just didn't have an opinion formulated, and I didn't have a thought basis built up and dreamed up before I ever read it. So as a story, standing alone, a Joker story, as we've all discussed, it was really good. So 9.6.
Rob?
Well, considering I read the original Joker series and I've read a lot of Joker one-shots, it's still the best Joker's one-shot that's exists thus far, at least in my mind. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, not even the John Carpenter thing that just came out, which was good. I would rate the 1980s version from when it came out in the 80s an 8 out of 10, because they were not thinking that he was trying to put together Citizen Goddamn Kane. He was just trying to put out a fun comic book and got an edict by being told, hey, go ahead and cripple the bitch. That was actually the words told to Alan Moore. It didn't matter what was going to happen to her afterwards. That was an afterthought. So judging it with 2020 lens, no pun intended with bad jokes, but looking at it with 2020 lens, the show, it's misogynistic. It's very one-sided. The dialogue's a little clunky, but then again, so is most of everything in the 80s. And good God, I'm trying to read this, and it's freaking hard.
You dolt.
Yeah, you poltoon. I'm like, where the hell do people get these words, man? No human being uses it. So looking back in 2020 lens, it's by the craft of the story, it's still a 6 because it's better than average. The characterization's there, but overall the story and the flow is just not typical of what we're used to seeing, and not decompressed storytelling, just with a nice flow from A to B, scene 1 to 2 to 3. It just, the story beats were a little too easy, and it was quick and it was short, and I don't like short.
Drew?
I just yelled a lot, and it's because I'm cranky, guys. I'm sorry. It's been a long day, and I spent most of it in bed. Oh, look, you can't judge this book by the continuity around it. It was not originally intended to be an in-continuity story. Carson, refresh my memory as the DC guru on the panel. When did they start folding this into continuity? Was that post-Crisis?
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, this took place post-Crisis. It came out in '88. Crisis pretty much wrapped up in like '85, '86 is when that ran.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty much the books Rob showed, the Suicide Squad. That's where they slowly started to get Oracle introduced and worked into the DC continuity all the way up until 2011, where she just randomly came back as Batgirl because Flashpoint.
She randomly came back as Batgirl because it was a dark period that shouldn't have been based on this in continuity. But let's just, I got to judge this book by itself. The artwork is, I would say, vastly above average. I wouldn't consider it great by any means, but it's vastly above average. It's the sequential storytelling is done perfectly because of the Nazi Alan Moore and his stranglehold on sequential art and how he wants his panels to look. I got a big book up there about Dave Gibbons and how he put together Watchmen and how many times Alan Moore would make him redo things.
He's the Orson Welles of comics.
It's fine. You know, there's a certain set amongst comic book readers that will sit around and sniff a snifter of Alan Moore's farts and say how wonderful they smell. This is really good. It is not great. It's short. It's sweet. But I'm not a huge fan of giving the Joker an origin at all. Sympathizing that character at all is just questionable to me. Just in the basis of storytelling. But I enjoyed this. It's a quick read. It's a fun read. I just think if you want it to be big and meaningful in continuity, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But one-on-one, this book is an 8.8.
Wow. I was expecting lower when I walked off and saw the screen.
Oh, you should have listened. I was fucking bitching about everything, man. That's what I do.
I always do it on the rewind. I was just giving you a gag to edit in later and have some fun with.
Oh, you're fine. I'm not editing anything. I've done enough.
But anyway,
I got to talk to you about having to edit something after this is over.
The unemployment in.
Oh yeah, I got it in. That's what I was doing when my mask was up. I was a little tickety.
It's like, you're cleared, the check's in the bank, and then I love Alan Moore now.
No. I bitched about it after the unemployment was done. I did spend 10 hours waiting for a button to ding today. That was fantastic.
I think for me, I'm going to give this one probably a 9.6. I just remember when three of the four of us here, and then JB reviewed Justice League, and it was very hard to get into because of the continuity. With this book, all you really need to know is Batman and the Joker. These two characters, you don't know too much about them, really.
It's actually better if you don't.
Exactly, I agree 100%.
That's where I'm at.
Honestly, I understand why Andy is blown away by this, because the more continuity that you've experienced with these two characters, the less you're probably gonna like this book, and that's just all I'll say about it from my perspective.
But yeah, you don't. There's really no continuity to take in mind, and like Rob said earlier, you don't only really need to know about the history of Batgirl and Batman. They kind of have enough of that relationship with them in that scene where she's in the hospital and Batman asks everyone to clear the room, and she's like, "It's me, Bruce. Are you okay?" And then they kind of have their moment together finally. So it's almost a rarity to get one issue in our medium that holds up this well. It's probably like a top 10 single issue basically ever. The only other, if you guys like this, I'd probably compare it to reading that Superman annual that Alan Moore did as well. What do you get for the man who has everything?
That is much better than
yeah. I mean, that's
a perfect story.
I wouldn't go perfect, but that, I mean,
that's go ahead.
It's got its issues, but it is fantastic. Man who has everything is fantastic.
Yeah, so if you like this story, definitely check that one out. But yeah, like I said, I got to go 9.6 on that. So yeah, hopefully you guys like that review of The Killing Joke. But right now we're going to hop into the chat here because I've had a chance to say hi to a few folks who hopped in. We got Gore Vidal once again with the phenomenal quotes. I'll try to get to some of those here in a second. But this guy, he always does his homework. He always has very articulate and excellent things to say. We got Fish Tropic Man, my first subscriber ever. What is going on? Always happy to see him in the chat. K-Dog.
Hey, can we shout out Gore again real quick? Because I think Gore had a fantastic weekend of dropping thoughtful comments for just about every one of our guests on the Mainframe Comic-Con. Gore, thank you for classing up the chat. We appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, every time that guy types something, it's definitely worth reading for sure. And I'll probably botch something trying to read it here in a second after saying that. But we got K-Dog in the chat. What is going on, K-Dog? He was looking for Kraven's Last Hunt. We actually got a chance to review Kraven's Last Hunt a few months back. It's on the Modern Men playlist. I highly recommend checking it out. Hopefully you will like it if you do. Let's see who else we got. We got King of the Golden State. What's going on, man? He's comparing serial killers and terrorists like you guys were earlier. I don't know which Comic Corps in the chat, but they don't like Sting either.
They're just speaking truth.
We got the Great Legend Show in the chat. He's trying to make me laugh over there, of course, as usual. Like every Monday we're on here. I think I saw Chad R in the chat earlier. I was going to shut him out again. We got Bearded Comic Bro. What is going on, Bearded Comic Bro? He says, love the story, but it sounds like Drew's about to drop some hot takes. And he did. Some lava hot takes there. But yeah, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to show some love to our friends at the Hero Initiative. So this will be the time where I do that share screen gimmick and show you guys what you can expect from the Hero Initiative this week. So if you guys have been keeping track, we've been trying to help them out plugging this. All you got to do is go to heroinitiative.org/merchandise, and you guys can make a donation to the Hero Initiative and get a chance to have a Q&A chat with a creator of your choice. So this week, and they still have a few that didn't sell it from last week that you have last chances on, like I believe Brian Azzarello, Ron Moores, and Steve Borak were all from last week, so you still have a chance to chat with them if you like. But they've also, to this upcoming lineup, they've added Cami Garcia from the new, the Harley Criminal Minds. You can definitely check that out. So Cami Garcia, I met her at C2E2. She was absolutely awesome. One of the nicest people you'll ever talk to in the medium. Marv Wolfman. Who wouldn't want to talk to Marv Wolfman? I mean, come on. That guy was an absolute sweetheart. Kat and I got to interview him at Baltimore Comic-Con, and he was amazing to talk to. So you guys can have your own Q&A with Marv Wolfman. Actually, let's see what the date on this one is to get you guys some clarification. It'll take place May 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern for 40 minutes. So I can't recommend that one enough, especially if you like the Crisis, which Rob was showing earlier. Here's one for Andy.
Yes.
And there's one left in stock. A chat and a sketch with artist Charlie Adler from The Walking Dead.
Okay,
40 minutes, May 1st at noon.
Carson, when I looked at that hours ago, literally like lunchtime hours ago, it was open. So they've sold off 75% of those in a matter of 4, 5, 6 hours.
Yes, that's how fast these things go.
That's going to be gone tonight.
Yeah, so if nothing else, hopefully we can help them sell this last one here. But a sketch, you read that right, a chat and a sketch with artist Charlie Adler. Most likely, he'll probably draw the sketch right in front of you right there in that Zoom chat. So it's an amazing opportunity to get something one-on-one, and you get the FaceTime too. That can't be understated. Also, Joe Prado, definitely, DC artist. He's done Superman, Justice League of America. I think he did Brightest Day as well. He did a lot of work on that. So you have a sketch opportunity with him as well. Howard Shakin's back for another opportunity. And didn't forget him down here. And this guy, he doesn't charge. He's not cheap at conventions, and there's no conventions going on right now. So here's your opportunity to get a chat and a sketch with Ed McGuinness. And that's May 2nd at 6 p.m.
Ooh, looks
so
young there.
That
$300?
Yeah, he does a great quality sketch. A great quality sketch you'll always get from Ed McGuinness. That's amazing. Definitely some more great opportunities from the Hero Initiative right there. So, Andy, what do you think about those opportunities from the Hero Initiative?
Dude, I'm incredibly stoked. The first round they did, and you told me about that, I was like, I'm going to go check. And you're like, hey, it was just posted an hour ago. And I look and I'm like, half the stuff was gone already. Like, just like that. These seats are very limited, people. We're talking 5, 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 at the most. they keep them limited for a reason. It's for that experience, and it's for the donation to the Hero Initiative. So it's a great cause. The time, the money that goes into it. I'm thinking I need to get off of here soon and make sure
you need that one. Who knows? Maybe you'll see Andy hosting one of those very soon too. You never know.
I hear some pretty fantastic members of the Comic Corps have actually done some of those. So
I actually just got off the phone before the show started with a fellow by the name of Brian over at Simple Man's Comics, who's going to be doing one of those for us as well. So, and he's like, "Hey, what's the lay of the land on this thing?" And I told him, man, it's going to be a very enjoyable experience for everybody. It's awesome to just kind of sit in on those and watch them happen.
You know, like I said last week, I got a chance to do the IDW Q&A, and they put on an entire panel show for the 5 people that showed up. I mean, it was like a full convention panel where I got to see them talk about Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, and all the other things they have going on. So and almost every one of these from the core members I've heard that hosted them, the creators will stay pretty much as long as they feel like, basically. So a lot of these say 30 and 40 minutes. And if they want to do that, it's their time. Of course, that's up to them. But a lot of them are gracious enough to stay and make sure the people who made these donations are happy.
Yeah, the Scott Dunbier panel was scheduled for a half hour. We went for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. I said, I don't want to promote that they're going to stay longer, but most of the stories I've heard, the creators want to give.
I don't think anybody's been cutting people off.
No,
so.
like I said, I don't think
these guys are happy to be doing this for charity, and sitting down, nerding out, and having these conversations is something that they're excited to do, and they're happy to share that experience with people who want to be able to drop some of that money in there for the Hero Initiative. This is a rough time for everybody in the world. But imagine that your profession that you poured 30 years of your life into didn't have a retirement plan. So take that into account. These guys don't have a union, and the Hero Initiative is basically here. They want to keep their funds afloat, so there's never a bad time to give, because it's a situation like kind of like Social Security. If nobody's paying into it, nobody's going to be able to get anything out of it, and there's only so many people in the comic book industry, and the more that we can give to them, the better.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, imagine showing up to a convention and being one of only, getting that front row seat to that panel, right? Getting that front row seat to that panel is, amazing. You're a front row seat. Now imagine looking behind you and not seeing anybody there except for the 2 or 3 people to your left and to your right. How amazing is that panel going to be? That's what you're going to get when you do one of these with the Hero Initiative. I mean, that's stellar in my opinion.
Chris Barrett in the chat saying avoid the Archie panel. The Archie panel was awesome, man. Alex Segura and Dan Parent. It was kind of a lull in the live chat, but I'll tell you what, some really great stories there from Dan Parent, how he got to be an artist working for Archie through the Cupert School. Some really cool stuff there. And if you're a fan of Archie, man, it would definitely be right up your alley. We can tell that Chris Barrett is not.
We're a fan just of Dan Parent, just to show up.
Yeah, no, he's a great artist. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so tonight's topic, and we'll probably end up getting through this one pretty quick because we didn't read the books. So our topic for tonight is just those top main books you've seen on everybody's top lists. But for whatever reason, we haven't read it. It was voted on by you guys a couple weeks back because it's all the best poll I could think of. And it won by, 36%. So I guess I'll go ahead and go first in this. I guess you can take my comic book fan club card away because and you're going to laugh at this one, Drew, probably Andy too.
All right.
I've actually never read V for Vendetta.
Neither have I.
Ever. I've seen
the movie.
I've
got no interest. I hear that the book's better than the movie, but I haven't read it.
And I know,
and that's what pisses me off the most about it, because it's been this close to being part of Modern Men. And I just laugh that
it's always a swing and a miss for whatever reason. It's always been so close to winning a poll or being on, but then it'll finish third place. Andy already bought it because it was leading a poll.
It's been so close 3 different times that I said, I'm just going to buy it. It's going to hit one of these days, and it still hasn't hit.
So, Rob, you looked like you read it, obviously. Tell the three of us idiots why we should read V for Vendetta.
Because if you like the movie, which was a good popcorn muncher, it was fun. If you go and read the book, you'll go, wow, the movie was very mediocre, but this is very engrossing. And do I really have 8 hours in which to read all of this? because I think it was 9 issues, and it was thoroughly researched, just like he was working on the Jack the Moore storyline, or Jack the Ripper storyline. And with this V for Vendetta, I'll put it this way. If you ever watched the TV show Under the Dome and then read the book, you realize that when they made this TV show, they just used the name and maybe a couple character names and then left the entire story on the cutting room floor. That's what they did with the movie.
Ooh.
Yes, it's definitely always on my, like, I need to read this list, but then, like, shiny something will come from the other corner. I'll end up doing that basically every single time. But I will read it at some point, I promise. So, Rob, I know we kind of threw you on this panel very literally last second. Is there a book out there you've heard about a trillion times but for a reason have never read?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I've read Cerebus enough to drop it. But the big one right now that I really want to start reading is, oh God, I should know the name of this thing here. It's like Moon something or other. Come back to me later.
Okay. Drew.
Yeah.
Who's texting me?
All of that Neil Gaiman, Vertigo, Sandman stuff.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's what I keep hearing. Nothing about it remotely appeals to me. The kind of people I see wearing Sandman t-shirts make me want to punch them in the face. I'm just saying, nothing about the aesthetic or the vibe is something that tells me I need to read this. But it's like one of those, this is seminally celebrated. I've never read it, and until this panel chooses it in some sort of randomizer or something, I'm not gonna.
Wow. I thought you at least read it and hated it. I didn't realize you just
I've just never read it. I just don't care.
I mean,
people are
I
like
understand.
Constantine. I'm like, I don't care about Constantine.
I can understand if something just doesn't appeal to you. That's like trying to tell me like I need to read all this manga. I don't know the first thing about that type of stuff.
Right.
So no, I get that completely. I mean, in
addition to that, Carson, here's something you might have some more meat on. Anything with the name Crisis in it that isn't Heroes in Crisis. I've never read an Infinite Crisis. I never read an Identity. Well, I might have read the Identity Crisis. I think I read the Identity Crisis when you guys were doing something with it. And Crisis on Infinite Earths, never read it.
Wow. I just started to read it this week.
Giant DC events from the 70s to like the 90s, with the exception of Superman, Death of Superman stuff. I didn't read it.
See, for me, why you maybe, I don't know. It kind of goes into what we just talked about with The Killing Joke. The Killing Joke was such a great like single story where you could pick it up and read it today. Sometimes those crisis books are the best when you have all of that knowledge of the DC characters going in. Like I was a big fan of most of the Jeff Johns stuff going into Infinite Crisis. So when I got a chance to read Infinite Crisis, thumbs up. That was a cool call, man. That got me. But when you have all that knowledge of these characters and their relationships going into the Infinite Crisis, and you see the impact it has on the books before and after, you really feel like you gain a lot as a reader, in my opinion. So that's why I really enjoy the crises I've read, basically, except for Final Crisis. Skip that one. I didn't like it. What about you, Andy?
Real quick, is that the one where Superboy punches a hole in the universe?
Yeah, that's.
I thought that was.
I don't condone the one shot. There was a one shot like secret files, as they called them. Then I don't know. That was, I think, Didio. It might have been Didio. I don't know, but they needed a way to figure out how to get Superboy Prime, like, to crack a wall to get them through into the main world. Plus, justify bringing back the Red Hood, and they used 2 birds with 1 stupid stone. I don't like that part of it. I dug the rest.
Punched a hole in the universe and brought back Red Hood.
It made as much sense as Flashpoint.
Red Hood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. Legit. Sounds legit. Yeah. Why not?
Exactly. That's what happened.
Cool.
All right, Andy. I know the whole basis of why we started Modern Men was basically me showing a graphic novel and saying, I needed to read that. So, Andy, I need to change around this question for you, I feel like, because you're just starting to absorb a lot of this content. So I guess what's the main big-time story you have yet to read you really want to get your hands on?
Well, I mean, you guys said it. V for Vendetta. It's sitting right here, ready to go. Sandman Run. Really want to read that. One of the things that I haven't read that the Comic Core group family, I think it was Comic Core Unlimited back in the day, early last year, read it, was Why the Last Man.
Oh, that was StoryCorps, the old Monday show.
Yeah, it was Monday StoryCorps.
The old yeah. So I started watching Comic Core literally on the same week that you guys finished that. So everybody's like, no, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. We just did that. And it's been like a year and a half.
This is a great question.
Have I read Saga yet? Yes, many times. Yes, many times.
Read Saga first, then go back and read Why the Last Man.
Read Saga before you read Why the Last Man. It's better.
Agreed. I agree with that. From what everybody's been telling me about the differences between the two, I agree with Drew on that. But here's something that's come in the chat.
Also, read Paper Girls. That's better than Why the Last Man too.
Is it? Wow.
It's more concise. It's more enjoyable.
So the chat's brought this up.
I'm missing it
times now. Is Mouse? However you pronounce it, Maus.
Mouse.
Oh yeah,
Mouse.
Yeah.
That's come up 3 or 4 times in the chat that I've been hearing that. I was like, I'm really intrigued to read that one.
Mouse is good.
Great.
It's not.
Be prepared.
It's deep and it's dark and it's personal to the reader as well. I enjoyed it. It's not a light read.
So the only other 2 I had was Bone and Transmetropolitan.
Oh, Transmetropolitan's fun, dude. I think, honestly, of that list
in the future.
Of that list you just gave me, Andy, based on the characters you really like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, Perry Cobb in the chat. He's not under the desk lurking. Thank God. Anyway, I think of all of the characters you like, you Punisher and that stuff, I think you would really dig Transmetropolitan. Guy, I mean, he's just such an a-hole character. And Rob, describe Transmetropolitan. You probably read it more than I have.
So he comes down a goddamn mountain after he's been told, you got to finish your last 2 books or else I'm going to sue your ass.
Yep,
so he has to finish his book. He takes a shower. It's like an acid bath. He's pissed off all the time. He's Hunter S. Thompson, literally, in the future. He pops drugs all the time, so he's whacked out of his gourd. He has to deal with an editor in the future that hates him. Deal with these 2 girls that he's really horrifically misogynistic to, but then they kind of take him because they realize he's just a doddering old fool that really can't take care of himself, and he's all about the truth, but he's just really oblivious to the world around him. Great story. It goes for about 60 issues, and it's some very futuristic storytelling. One of the best reads I had as a teenager.
I feel like we need to. I don't feel like I can read that until we do it on Modern Men. I feel like I need to read that with Modern Men.
Yeah,
my horse will probably be sick. I'm not hunting that down.
You don't like Transmetropolitan, Drew?
I've never read it, and I don't know where to find it, and it's probably not on any of the digital platforms at a cheap rate.
I got you.
Well, I don't want to get locked up by the FBI for pirating that book because I have no interest in it.
I feel like you would love that book, Drew. I
probably would, but there's a lot of things I'd probably love that I'm never going to get around to. There's so much on my list already that I can't go out of my way to read things that don't appeal to me on cover basis.
So
I'm judging books by covers at this point in my life.
If you either want to force Drew to read Transmetropolitan or make his horse sick, put the suggestions in the chat.
Don't do that to my horse.
Don't kill his horse, but he should definitely read
Transmet.
All the cool kids were reading back in the late 90s instead of all the Marvel crap that was going through bankruptcy.
That's fine, but the Marvel crap is way better now than anything else that's out there. It's just quality, head and shoulders above most books on the independents. There are a few that reach that level, and like anything DC's putting out just is like basement garbage.
Oh, I remember the 3 books that I still have yet to read, but everyone's talking about.
Go for it.
Yeah,
Monstrous. I've been hearing some great stuff about that, and didn't it just finish? Wicked and the Divine. I never got a chance to.
The
read
first
that.
trade is really good at Wicked and Divine.
Yes.
I will recommend the first trade. I don't know where it goes after that.
It's good.
Okay, and the last one is East and West.
I haven't read that yet either. That's on my
I
list.
read it when it first came out, but it's a Hickman, so I need to go back, reread it with all of the issues to get the most out of it. And you get
Exactly.
I mean, we know how Hickman is on this show, but yeah, that's definitely one. Like, I don't know, Andy, I don't think you've read East of West either, right?
Nope.
I think that's inevitable for us to read on this show. Then, if all of us here,
Shout out to Aggressively Relaxing. Have you guys read Dan Slott's Silver Surfer?
Yeah.
Heck yeah, that's a good one. That's
fantastic.
A really good
Andy,
read.
have you read Dan Slott's Silver Surfer?
Okay, so I've read Silver Surfer Black.
Andy,
which is a masterpiece. But
Andy,
this is fun,
unless you read the Mobius strip issue of Dan Slott's Silver Surfer, you've never read a comic book.
So when you say Dan Slott's Silver Surfer, that's like gibberish to me, as I don't know how far back or where to find that. So
put in your Google machine Silver Surfer Dan Slott. It's like a 36 issue run.
Let me Google that for you.
Yeah, they broke it up into 2 parts for some reason because of Marvel now.
It was because of the Secret War. They gave it a little bit of an ending afterwards. There's like a 6-issue arc where they ended it. But yeah, Silver Surfer. All of the art is by Mike and Laura Allred from Madman. And it's just
X-Force that they did. You'll
so
probably
good.
like that.
And honestly,
so
I think it's Dan Slott's best. The best story.
It's my favorite Dan Slott story.
Yeah, and it's a phenomenally beautiful book. And I agree. I actually put the Mobius strip issue on my wall.
I think
it's an excellent comic book.
I got a raw signature on that from Dan Slott in Baltimore last year.
I want to get mine signed at some point.
Oh, it's pretty recent, within 6 years ago.
Yeah.
God Tank is asking me how was Monsters. I don't know. I haven't read it. That's something that I do want to read, but it looks like Andy read it.
No. So this is an interesting thing Modern Men has done to me, is that I've started to collect trade paperbacks back here, but I haven't read half of them because I haven't won the randomizer yet.
That's like me going and picking up New Comic Wednesday books and winding up having like 89 copies of The Flash that I haven't read a single one.
Oh yeah. Well, here's what I do on that is I've done that a lot, and what I'll do is like I'll go to my shop and I'll pick up books, and they'll be like, I'll look through them as they're getting ready to ring them up, and I'm like, I'm still buying this. I'm not still reading this. Like, hey, do me a favor, drop this title. And they'll be like, well, it's ending in 3 issues. And I'll be like, fuck, just keep it on there till it's over. Just don't carry me over to the next one. I'll finish the volume.
The crap that happens to me is this. Well, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is okay, but it's just one more book that I have. I guess I'll put it back, and it's issue 95.
Yeah.
and now it's ending in 105. They announced that that's ending in 105. Yeah, the 105 is the last issue for that run.
Hey, hands up over here. I haven't read the IDW Turtle stuff aside from a few different crossovers and a few different like one shots. So, like as far as starting at number 1 IDW stuff, I haven't read that Turtle stuff. So that's some good. That's a good book. It's on my list of things to read. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I picked up the hardcovers, like that box set for the 1 and 2.
Now, going to that Turtles, I said it during the Kevin Eastman interview, it may be the best iteration of Turtles they have ever came up with. And obviously there's several good iterations of Turtles because I kind of like the Turtles, as you guys know. But, I mean, just the whole scope of that story they finally got to tell, over 100 issues and all the spin-offs, miniseries, what have you. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And they take a lot of these old characters and action figures you play with as a kid and integrate them into this long arc, and they just have a lot of fun with them, but they also can have these serious moments that kind of make you want to cry sometimes too.
I'm excited to get to it. It's like one of those things. Chris Barrett does not understand. Chris Barrett says, I only read 3 things: Marvel, Hickman, and Black Hammer. That is not true, my friend. I honestly, there's a lot of things out there I haven't read, but you can ask Carson from doing weekly shows with me over the past couple of years. I read so much. I read more new books coming out than most people I know. Are a lot of them Marvel? Yeah, it's a question of quality. Why would I buy lesser then? Are a lot of them DC? Yeah, a lot of them are DC. So, and are a lot of them independent titles? I read a lot of Black Mask and Action Labs. I read a lot of Image. I read a lot of IDW, and boom, I'm all over the map, man. Just because I celebrate the things that are great, like Hickman and X-Men, doesn't mean that I don't know everything that's a 7 out of 10. I know it all.
Let's see. Fish Tropic is asking if you guys would ever do Bone Parish. Yeah, I would. That's Cullen Bunn, right?
I would love
Cullen Bunn on the show.
I would love to read Bone Parish on the show.
Yeah, I mean,
Cullen Bunn, right?
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely be up for some Cullen Bunn, whether it be Bone Parish or I know Legend's still going to beat me up on this one because I have.
What's going on there, Peanut Gallery? Why isn't he ever on the show? He's always in the chat giving me a hard time.
Is the Sixth Gun. So Sixth Gun is one I'd like to read. That's going to be probably my other pick. So
I would love to finish that. Yeah. I read the first volume, but I haven't gotten that far into it.
We should read Hitman too.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Hitman.
Hitman was definitely good, especially when you get the Dog Welder.
Oh yeah, I love Dog.
You have this.
I was gonna say, Drew, you got any thoughts on Dog Welder?
I love Dog Welder, dude. We had an interview with Ennis at Baltimore Comic-Con. It's just like a quick little thing. Chad had a microphone, I had a microphone. We're just like, hey, can I ask you a couple questions? He's like, yeah. It's like, what are you working on? He's like, blah 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 blah. I'm working on this. I'm working on that. This is probably, what was it? Scarlet? No, not Scarlet. What's that? Lady Assassin book he did, whatever that was. And then Chad's like, ask him about the boys. I asked him 3 questions, and they were all about Dog Welder.
Here's a good final question from William Bird. I mean, I was actually kind of going to think about asking this. He says, how much of your collections have you not read? About 25% of my collection is waiting on me.
I'd say about 40% of my collection I have not read, because I'm trying to put together runs, and once I have a good chunk of a run together, I'll read it. But until if I've got 1, 2, 7, 8, 12 of something, I haven't read it yet, unless it's something that I ended up picking up in trade.
I'm with Drew on that. I've got to be at least 45%ish, if not maybe a hair more or a hair less, because I went through a massive phase for a year of buying a lot of minor keys while they were really cheap. Well, let me get these 10 books while they're still $5 a piece, and then I'll worry about the rest of the run later. So there's probably a good, it's probably close to 40-45% of my collection that I'm still waiting to do those runs, because I am terrible with that. I won't even read the first 5 issues unless I have the trailing 30 or 40 issues, because I just can't sit there like that on a cliffhanger.
That's why I'll pop for like the middle of an arc issue in a dollar bin. I'll be like, yes, I need this, and go home and read a whole trade.
Yep. I found like Ultimate Spider-Man 96 last year, and that was the very last issue I needed to complete the Bendis and Bagley run. And I was so excited in the store. It was like, I mean, it's literally a $1 book. So, but yeah, I'm the same as you guys pretty much. I don't know what percentage, probably about 40% is my guess. But at the same time, for me, I can't pass up a good deal. If a book is 20 cents that I think is cool, I'm probably going to buy it. If there's a hardcover that looks interesting that's 40-50% off and it has a creator I like on, I'm probably going to buy it. And then I just kind of make this big queue and eventually start working my way through it. And sometimes I end up buying more than I read. So it happens. It's the collecting hobby.
I've read absolutely nothing except for Killing Joke this weekend. And I'm like, I just want to read comics tomorrow. That's probably what I'm going to do all day.
Yeah. When I get the chance, Carson, I'm definitely coming down and going to hang with you for a weekend and go shopping, because
we'll have to plan it once the world's back to normal, man.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob?
Me, I'm probably right about there with you guys. I mean, before I started this YouTube channel, it took about a good 2 years to put all of this together the way it looks now, because before it looked ratty, but back then I would have said like 95% of everything I read. And then I looked at Comic Tom, the way he had his boxes laid out. I'm like, well, that looks cool. I want to make it look just like that or better. And then I'm buying books, and I shift from being a reader of only New Comic Wednesday books to getting the older stuff too, because I used to buy that way until I had to sell almost everything. And when I decided to just do a YouTube channel, I'm like, yep, well, now I'm getting a lot of these keys. I'm showing these things off. I'm reading some of them here and there, But yeah, probably about at least 40% of them I just file and hope that I finish a run like Moon Knight. I'm missing 5 issues out of the entire run from the first volume, and then I can get to reading it. I remember back when I was in high school reading all of the omnibus of the Claremont Byrne Cochran run on X-Men, but I don't have all the issues. But when I finally do, I'll read from like 94 all the way on through 300. I only have about maybe 10 or 18 more to go. So yeah, I haven't read everything, but if it's a new book that's coming out on a Wednesday, I've read about 90% of those. But when DC started to put the shit out, when it's become, okay, we have a release schedule of twice a month and we're going to release this title. And we also decided to spin off with this one. The stack keeps growing and growing. Oh, and older stuff too. Wait, how much was that New Mutants 98? Oh, don't mind if I do. And I'm just having all this crap.
Funny how that works. You join the community and you end up getting more books, because exactly the same thing happened to me too. All right, so big thanks to everyone who voted for this topic. We're going to go and kind of get into our final section here, but first I do want to visit the comments one more time, because we still got Chris Barrett hanging out as usual. Fish Tropic, man, you've been killing it with the links all weekend, including tonight as well. We got Mark Knapp 68 joining us. What is going on? Let's see. We'll skip the Sting comments there. We still got the great legend. He loves him.
We'll shout those out.
We got aggressively relaxing, still hanging out the whole show.
Thank you for joining us camera lens, man. Apparently.
Gore Vidal, man, with the great picks in the chat as usual. Definitely, like I said, that guy typed something. You better listen to him for sure. Aggressively relaxing. My Morphin Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series coming soon. I can't wait till it comes back. Yeah, that'll be a good one as well. Scott Evans talking about Invincible. Yep. That's definitely one for the read list, guys. Yep, for sure. God Tank suggesting Monstrous, or maybe he's just asking. But like I said, that is one of the books I still need to read. I was actually invited to a book club that I couldn't make. And I said I was going to read it, then watch the show. I just ended up doing none of that at all. I still need to do that. And that's how it goes sometimes. You get busy. And, of course, Perry joined us. But big thanks to everybody, of course. But next week, let me clear up the chat screen real quick. Next week, we got another fun show planned. It's May the 4th. So that means episode 30. We're going a long time ago on a YouTube channel far, far away. Modern Men episode 30. That's right. It's going to be all Star Wars. And I think we may have a special guest for that episode as well. I don't want to confirm it because that person may have to work next week, but I may have a special guest during that episode, so stay tuned for that. But we've already got our poll up for next week, and it's every bit Star Wars.
You guys want to get your hands on our poll?
Come get our first pick. Drew, tell me about Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, Kieran Gillen tells a really great story from the perspective of Darth Vader. And you also get the introduction in this first volume to one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe, Dr. Aphra. This is a great, great book. Came out, 2015? Yes. Yeah. 2015, along with the new Marvel Star Wars relaunch. And it is phenomenal.
It's funny you mentioned that book because that's choice number 2.
Jason Aaron,
this came out
Cassidy on the art. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? You guys have not been enjoying this. I don't know what galaxy far, far away you're living in.
Yeah, I mean, these are the 2 choices. It's what transitioned from Dark Horse to Marvel during this brand new trilogy they had in theaters. So I think they're 2 pretty important picks for the poll because it was a very transitional time for the Star Wars property. The next pick actually came from the Great Legends show, so I went and picked it. Tag and Bink are dead. The Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the Star Wars universe. Looks like Rob Worst is going to put in his vote right now for Tag and Bink are dead. So, Rob, what can you tell me about Tag and Bink? Because I actually have not read these 2 issues.
Okay, considering that we're supposed to seriously hate Jar Jar Binks, they wound up crafting a tale where you actually wind up liking the characters, and it's funny. It's an engaging story. It came out of the blue, and I remember back in the day, Wizard hyped the heck. First, they were making fun of it when it was about to come out, and then when it finally came out, they had to eat their words because it was really good. And it's very short. It's only 2 issues.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say it'll be an easy read
as well.
Yeah, and it's all on Marvel Unlimited as they changed the logo up top, the corner there. So the next one,
it's got that Legends banner at the bottom there.
Yep, maybe that's why the Legend picked it. But anyway, we'll keep going. Another Legends banner, Star Wars Infinity. So I just went through this as a final pick out there. Actually, there's one more, but it's the final pick on our poll. But anyway, this kind of like your Elseworlds, what if style storytelling integrated into the Star Wars universe. Rob, did you read this one? What is the what if that happens in The New Hope?
I have no idea. I have not read this.
Oh, no worries then. I know in Empire, because I know I'm just picking it. Maybe we'll just do, I already put this on the poll, so we'll do it. But I know the Empire Strikes Back, that's where Luke gets killed on Hoth, and they have to tell the story of Empire Strikes Back with no Luke Skywalker. So it's something akin to that. And then the last one, I think this is like the biggest classic one I can think of that really put Star Wars comics on the map, and that's Dark Empire. Where you kind of get to see the slow build of the Empire that's been shattered, but there's hints that the Emperor may be coming back before they made that crazy new movie that happened, and Luke perhaps maybe being turned to the dark side, and Leia having to be the one that eventually brings him out of that, all that good stuff. It's a 6-issue miniseries, but it's the first one I remember registering on a lot of fans' maps in the comic book world, so I think Dark Empire, in my head, at least as a kid, I remember this is the one that made a lot of waves in the comic book world. So those are the 5 picks.
You know what's making a lot of waves in the super chat world?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, look at that. We got a super chat from the great legend. So he says he loves Rob Wurst on this panel. Hashtag RW for MM. I think that stands Rob Wurst for Modern Men Hero Initiative, powered by the Hero Initiative. And that is not pluralized heroes, legend. You're welcome. All right. So awesome show tonight, guys. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat. So we'll go over some final shout outs and where can people find these guys. So Rob, thank you so much for responding to that bat signal, showing up literally once again at the last second. Rob Wurst, where can people find you?
Well, my name's Rob Wurst. You can find me on my channel, Rob Wurst, W-O-R-S-T. It's okay to laugh. Everyone else does. I have a show every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I only do it once a week. I also have on Lady Fantastic, Comics on the Mind, and Miracle Man. He has no face, but he's a fighter over there on Twitter. So this coming episode, we're going to be talking about events and how they have affected the characters, whether the character development has progressed a character or has been a detriment to, because let's face it, they have screwed up some characters really badly over the years. So that's going to be this coming Wednesday, and I've been working on a new intro, so hopefully I have that ready come this Wednesday. So hope to see you there.
Nice. Yeah, don't
Rob
forget
Wurst
about
is the Rob Best, I tell you.
Poor Arsenal. But anyway, Drew, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me here tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. for the Daily Show. I'll be coming back. I got some sleep, so I think I feel rejuvenated. We're going to do some segments because that's how I like to roll. I'm assault on the segments.
Yep.
That's
You
right.
make us humble. Yes.
That's right. I will make you humble. I'll make you tap. And that's just the way it's going to be, folks. Other than that, you can find me. You can find me all over the Comic Core. I'm going to be around because I got nothing better to do, folks. You can find me on those sticks. Come and hit me up on Xbox, DruManchu X42, and I'll play with you.
2K19 WWE. He likes when you pick Sting. But anyway, Andy, where can people find you and your beard?
You guys can find me here Monday nights, Modern Men, the best book club on YouTube every Monday night. And you guys can find me on Andy Given Thursdays. So we're putting a show together for this Thursday that I'm looking forward to. And wherever else the Comic Core needs me, sometimes you can find me on the Simpleman's Comics podcast over there on their channel. And the Pinkies Out podcast. You guys can find me there when this whole endeavor comes to a close and we can get together and drink some beers because our fridges are full of the beers that we've been planning for our future episodes and we haven't been able to open them. So we'll get there.
Hey, man,
Awesome.
I want to go ahead and shout out Chris Barrett one last time. He did a fantastic job all weekend monitoring the chat, but he's in here now spreading falsehoods. I can tag.
No, yeah,
Chad can't tag. Chad can't tag. I can't get on the apron properly.
No,
I can totally tag.
But anyway, you can find me, Seawooder19 on YouTube, Seawooder19 on Instagram. Hopefully, my friend Mike and I can get our podcast, Comics of the Atom, recorded this week. Last week, we discussed Astonishing X-Men 7 through 12, getting through the Danger arc. So if you guys want to hear that, just search for Comics of the Atom on iTunes. But hopefully this week we'll have part 3 of 4 of our Astonishing X-Men look backs. But it's really been enjoying reading Joss Whedon, John Cassaday goodness. And of course, like I said, hopefully, maybe not this week. I said last week, I say this like every week, but coming soon, we'll just say coming soon, I'm going to start reviewing the IDW Turtles on my channel, one arc at a time. So I'm still trying to get that worked out on. Fortunately, I'm back at work now, so that kind of is not the best schedule, but stay tuned for that on my channel. Yeah.
I just want to say that the podcast has been really great so far.
Oh, thanks.
Comics of the Atom has been good, and we got to figure out a way to get Mike on the show. Get that boy camera ready.
Yeah. I'll see what I can do for you, Drew. But until then, big thanks, guys. We'll see you next week for Star Wars.
Don't die.
Episode 30 of Modern Men. We'll see you.